gonna bring up the chat?
Yep. As soon as we go live.
Should be live.
There it is.
Allegedly.
Bring this
So they say.
over there.
Might have to adjust your camera. We're at different levels, and you can't see the pod belly. There you go. Perfect. And there's Scott. On time for his episode. I like it.
Very good.
Let us know if there are any volume issues. I think there were some issues with mine last week, so if you hear anything, for fuck's sake, say something in the chat.
And you will do it.
And you will do it.
Do it. Strike me down.
That sounded more like Yoda.
Strike me down, you will.
Where's my OBS?
The beauty of this topic is that I got to listen to Star Wars like nonstop.
It was fucking,
fun.
and I have
glorious.
notes to talk about for that. Like I don't want to like blow our wad before we
Right.
actually start. Isaac, what's up, man?
All of the wad blowing.
Yes, because I have a lot of comments just about the listening process. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. So we'll get there.
I'm going to bring up my notes from my phone on the PC here by logging into my iCloud.
This is nice.
There we go. Top 5 Star Wars soundtracks.
I'm really curious to hear what your list is gonna look like.
Yeah?
Like I honestly have no idea. I have some clues as to what might be where.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm really curious as to where stuff falls on your list, or if stuff even made your top 5. All right, thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Hello there.
I'm gonna have to get another one already. I don't think we have any more beers in the fridge. Hey, can you go through the fridge and see if there are any more beers anywhere? Question mark. It's fucking weak, man. Swear to God. General Kenobi. All right. My toast.
Yep.
At what point are you gonna roll into the Podbelly stuff? Trying to think of the flow.
Yeah. It'll be shortly after the hello there.
Alright. So my toast. Shout out to our newest patron and all the patrons.
Who we got? Who's new?
I told you about it a few days ago.
Oh, okay.
And then I think we're gonna pretty much roll into the. Oh, thank you, Supergirl 3000. Appreciate it.
Mystery flavor Mountain Dew.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll roll right into the main
Let's
topic.
just do it. Let's just
Yeah.
do it. It's the more you think about trying to get organized, the less organized we're going to be.
I'm so frazzled right now.
Spoiler alert, it's orange.
Don't even don't even get me started on the Ambien from last night. Like I took it and it took me an hour and a half to fall asleep.
It's because you don't use it right.
I was in bed.
You were still looking at your phone and shit,
You
though.
were texting me.
Don't blame me for your poor sleeping hygiene.
Anyway,
that's okay. I took medication that I was not supposed to take. Yeah, and I was. Hello. We're checking again.
Yeah.
Hello.
Because we're actually recording the audio. Do you want me to get beer?
It's entirely up to her.
Yes. I have to say live on the air, my wife is the greatest. She's offering to get us beer mid-show. So, I mean, how can you...
Not even mid-show, like right at the beginning, too, to ensure that there was no chance of running out.
Indeed.
Well, there shouldn't be. I mean, honestly, we do have to get up in the morning.
This has been a long week, though. I've been ready for this. Like, I'm almost done with my first beer, and we haven't even started yet. So
I feel you.
I'm done with my first beer, and we haven't even started yet.
Like, if I'm humming it, do we have to pay like royalties?
I don't think so. I don't think that's how that works.
Okay. So I could like hum through all of my selections.
You could do that. That is an option.
I don't have a kazoo. That would have been awesome.
Speaking of Kristen, were you following the fantasy football yesterday? Like the scores?
No, not really.
Oh man, her and our Canadian contingent were like neck and neck the whole fucking day until right at the end when Russell fuckface Wilson like went off, and
didn't they still lose that game?
They did, but like they were like making a furious comeback at the end, and he was throwing for like hundreds of yards. Any Oktoberfest beer, period. If they don't have any, Yuengling Premium.
They're not gonna have premiums.
They have them all the time. Like they've got it in regular stock there.
The premiums?
Yeah, right down the street. Yeah. All right. I like where Scott's head's at. All right, we about ready to record, or do we?
Yes.
Are we gonna do this? All right.
Waiting on you.
You're waiting for me, but
no, on you.
You're not a waiter, but all right. Let me get my stopwatch somewhere. I'm really just out of it today. I'm sorry, everybody. The last almost 3 weeks now has just been completely fucked for me. Hence why we didn't record last week. All right, we good?
Yep.
All right, 30 seconds of silence starting now. To the 3-0 San Francisco 49ers.
No.
Oh, what a weekend. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to All Things Star Wars, the greatest Star Wars podcast in the galaxy. I'm Mr. Jason Roscom. With me here each and every single week, the Darth Vader to my Palpatine, Dave Martin. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Jason.
How are you?
I am less good since you have to crow about your fucking 3-0 San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, but we'll save that for the sports podcast that we record after this. But until then, first of all, who are we brought to by today?
That's
brought forth by today.
We are bringing forth us today. We're on the Podbelly Network, was what Jason's trying to do, and he's trying to segue into, which I was going to handle, Jason.
Sorry.
God damn it. But we're on Podbelly. It's looks like this. They gave us cool shirts to wear.
Indeed.
You can, pig out on podcasts, I think is what it says on the back.
Yes.
So anyway, big thing is go to podbelly.com. All Things Star Wars is right at the top, and there's a plethora of different podcasts that are being hosted by Podbelly. So get in there and tell them Dave and Jason sent you.
Yes.
I don't know if we get anything for that, but it's worth a shot.
Yeah, right? Why not? And obviously, if you don't listen to the Used and Abused podcast, you should also do that. Our good friend Scott Rasmussen, who chose today's topic, which is
Top 5 Star Wars soundtracks.
Yes.
I deliberately said what the topic actually is, since it is a listener-chosen topic.
Yes.
And I usually don't get to it ever.
Right.
I usually just bullshit and then not ever get to it.
Right.
But yes, top 5 Star Wars soundtracks, which is just absolutely glorious.
Yeah.
Any excuse I can have to just listen to Star Wars nonstop, it's a fucking good day.
Oh yeah, and we'll get into the details of that later because I've got some stories about that too. But before we get into that, so yes, this topic was chosen by one of our top patrons, Scott Rasmussen. If you would like to support the All Things Star Wars podcast, you can support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/ATSW podcast, I want to say.
You're the one who set it up.
There's a link in the show notes. You can check it there. But I just want to give a quick shout out, especially to our newest patron, Frederick Martin, who just joined us last week. So,
And there is a relation.
oh, yes. So, thank you, Fred. Much appreciated. And again, thank you to all of our patrons. That would be Big Lovin', Camille Donovan, Scott Rasmussen, Tactical Swede, Frank Kulovich, Scott Rasmussen, as we mentioned, Tactical Swede. Did I say him already? I did.
Yeah, you did. It repeats for some reason.
Yeah. And then, of course, Don Solsky and Shotgun Mark. Thank you, everybody. You guys are the best. You are the reason why we're doing this. Thank you so much. And
Why do you have to put in the chat that the Lions beat Philly? I mean, we're obviously going to talk about it at some point later. We have Star Wars things to talk about, which are
Indeed.
obviously way more important.
right. Which, honestly, I was kind of perusing the news. We haven't had any real Star Wars news over the last couple of weeks. It's been more speculation and all that stuff. Although, today, I think, the Disney Plus pre-orders just went up. Like, how do you
Actually, it was yesterday.
Was it yesterday?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I did my pre-order yesterday.
Did you? Like,
Yep.
what's the benefit of pre-ordering a streaming service?
I don't know. Just to give the stockholders something to be like, hey, this isn't going to fall flat on its face because we got people to sign up for it already.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe there was some early access.
Well, Tactical Swede did. Seems way quiet on my
damn
phone.
All right. Hold on, let me adjust my mic. We're doing it live.
He is, in fact, doing it live. Why don't you swap cables?
That would be more of a...
No, you don't have to reroute the entire cable. Just unplug it and plug the cable from the other mic back into it and just lean it over the thing.
All right, I'm going to need your guys' help in the chat. How do I sound now? If otherwise, I'll just fucking...
Oh, that was good.
These are the things that you miss if you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel.
Oh,
Me smacking myself in the face with my microphone, which is pretty
epic.
good. But yeah, getting back to Star Wars news and whatnot. Yeah, really nothing going on from the official channels, so...
I will say, if you were watching the Sunday night game, for all you that are in the Sidebar Cantina, in the Facebook group, the Sidebar Cantina, if you're not, you should.
Yeah.
I posted, did you all see that?
Right, and like I woke up to that this morning, so I'm like, what'd I miss?
So for those of us who were, I was working on the new logo while I was doing that.
Yeah.
So as I was sitting, and I'm farting around on the computer, and all of a sudden I got goosebumps. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I looked at the TV, and it was the latest, what are they calling it? Teaser trailer, without the preamble.
For
So-
Rise of Skywalker?
For Rise of Skywalker.
Are you talking the footage from
The
the
same-
D23?
Yes.
Really?
With the dark Ray at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever you want to call her.
Yeah.
That was on primetime last night during the game.
No shit.
And I didn't even, I was paying enough, I was listening to it, but not necessarily hearing it.
Uh-huh.
And when I got the goosebumps for, the music or whatever, I, turned and looked, and it was, sure shit, there it was. So it was however long, it was 15 seconds or whatever,
Uh-huh.
because it didn't have the entire, lead-in that we had at D23. So it
Right.
was just, boom, it just picked up.
So
from that.
no original trilogy footage or any of
Nope.
that. It just
Nope.
went right into the
Just
Rise of Skywalker footage.
Right? Yeah. So, Rise of Skywalker is finally starting to get some primetime attention. Louder?
Yeah,
Loud?
I don't understand.
Is it louder?
Like, do I need to be louder or am I louder than before?
How about now?
Yeah. Is it working now?
Everything that's happening now is happening now.
Yeah. So no, that's awesome, and I wonder if that's up on YouTube now, where the what do they call them? TV spots.
It might be because it was on NBC.
Yeah.
So it's not an ABC joint.
Huh.
So that's what it was kind of like. I wasn't prepared to see anything like that.
That's
at all.
really surprising.
So it's the first time. And I mean, honestly, I don't watch network television. I
Yeah,
don't
neither
really
do
watch
I.
TV at all. So it could have been on before that, and I just hadn't ever saw it. But a couple of guys in the chat they saw it and they responded last night when I posted it on Facebook.
Yeah.
So that's what it was. Big love in and all you guys. So I wouldn't say who it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just cool. As we're talking about the music and everything else, and it's such a visceral reaction. I get a little bit of chills when I hear the music, and I'm just like.
And it makes it more real, It kind of gives you that kick in the ass, like, oh shit, this is coming soon. Like if they're showing commercials on TV, like during fucking football, then that means that they're starting to ramp up, and we're getting ready for this.
About fucking time.
Yeah, man. And Isaac said I'm perfect. I know, but I do appreciate it.
Don't tell him that. Don't.
I'm perfect, just like the 49ers. Ooh. Oh, so anyway. Let's just jump right into our weeks, and I'm going to get into mine, and it's going to be really quick because I've been working pretty much since, I haven't had a day off since the last time we recorded 2 weeks ago. So after that week, I went to Maryland for a week to do Empire stuff, lots of Empire stuff. And then this last weekend was a working weekend for me at work. So I don't have another day off until this coming Friday, and it'll be the first day off that I've had at home for 3 weeks. So it's been a lot of fucking work, no fucking play, and it's like I'm so frazzled. My sleep is completely fucked. Even when I take Ambien now, it's not fucking putting me to sleep right away, and I'm a fucking mess right now.
Yeah, like I said, your sleep hygiene is terrible. But
yeah, and I hate to say it, but part of it's because of my wife. But I love her to death. She goes to bed like an hour after I do, so she's up and about doing things, and it is starting to like keep me awake. So
you need to put one of those blindfolds on.
Maybe. Fuck, I used to have one of those when we were flying back in the day, and it actually really worked.
Yeah. You should do it.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that.
Because that's what it is. It's probably light or something. Like, remember, sleep hygiene is a huge thing.
Oh, trust me, I know. It's been bad lately. But besides that, really, I haven't been doing much because I haven't had fucking time.
Yeah.
So
look, I don't have my work excuse is not there is too much work. It sounds like such a fucking whiny, bitchy thing to complain about, but every day, not having really a day off because I'm going to lodge and on the weekends and at nights, and unfortunately with my health the way it is, like when I'm staying up late, like all that shit takes its toll, and I get to a point where I can't do anything. Yeah. So that's kind of what's been happening to me. Like nothing cool, nothing fun, except for doing some stuff.
Oh, I didn't see that.
However, I don't know if you can. Probably see this pretty good. So remember I had mentioned it when we went over the Millennium Falcon.
When you brought in the big supersized Millennium Falcon,
fucking taking up half the room over here.
Yeah.
So I said, we should hang it from the ceiling and we can get a TIE fighter to like be chasing it like in monofilament or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had a first order guy that I got from Target, like I think right after Force Awakens came out. Mm-hmm. I'm like, fuck it, I'm opening it.
Yeah.
Because I have an in the box, like the retro look TIE fighter.
Yep. Yeah. Like the retro packaging and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm keeping that in the fucking box. I'm not taking that out.
What's in the box?
So yeah, you should check it out. I don't know if there's
Is there a guy in there?
I don't think I have a pilot in here. Oh yeah, I do. I have a pilot in there.
All right.
I got lots of pilots.
Oh man, that's nice.
Isn't it cool?
That is cool.
And from a scaling perspective, I think it'll go real well with the Falcon hanging up.
And he's got a gun just for good measure.
Yeah, well, if you're gonna have the figure, you have to have the gun.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? It was in kind of in news and something that Big Swede had brought up. Mm-hmm. For those who are toy collectors, I know Bronco Fett's, a collector. Bronco Fett really wants to talk about Air Force.
Yeah.
Hasbro apparently is looking to cut out all of the plastic in its packaging.
I heard about that a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So the question came up, it's like, all right, well, for collectors, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Like, are they going to package it in such a way where you can still see through it? I could see eliminating some of the extraneous packaging, like, you know, the plastic inside of plastic inside of plastic.
Yeah.
So I could see that, but collectors, we want to see what's in there.
Hell yeah.
Like I know it's in my TIE Fighter box. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's sealed shut, whatever. It's a TIE Fighter, cool.
Yeah.
I got it. But like a figure, you want to see what the status of the figure that's in there.
Yeah, because like especially when you look at older stuff and like graded figures that are still in the packaging with the hard plastic around them, you can still
Yeah.
see the fucking figure
Oh,
through all
there's
that.
shit. In that Tatooine Collector Club, where I got most of the pops from, there was a guy who posted, I guess one of the people that does the grading.
Yeah.
It's like in acrylic, like an original Boba Fett, like in acrylic. And with it graded, it's pretty fucking sweet, man.
Ooh, man.
Like how much of this shit here, these original figures that you got in here, would look really good in that type of fucking.
Oh, I bet they would.
Behind glass type look, but it's got to be fucking insanely expensive.
Yeah.
You probably have to sell one of the figures to afford to put another one in acrylic,
Probably, yeah.
or we have to figure out how to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
What we need a vacuum chamber, some sort of like melting. Like, because you got to melt that shit, right? I don't know.
Do you? You think that's how they do that?
Well, you have like a ball of like the plastic material, then it probably goes to a form,
Yeah.
and then like you put the figure in the form and then vacuum seal it so that,
Damn.
right?
I'm sure.
I mean, that's just me guessing.
yeah.
But yeah, that's anyway. Sidebarred.
Yeah. But it's Star Wars related.
Exactly.
So.
But yeah, it's really, if you think about if Hasbro is doing that, like you figure all the plastic that's on a lot of these, like the Black Series figures, how they're sunken in the plastic inside the container. You know, how are you going to eliminate that? Because they already got rid of all the wire ties.
Right.
Like, so they don't wire tie shit in there.
Which that's
anymore.
actually nice because that got really fucking annoying.
Yeah, it gets caught up in a vacuum cleaner, or the cat eats it, or whatever. It fucking it ruin your day.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Something to look forward to in the next couple of years to see how that's going to go.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that for stuff like the Black Series figures and things that they know collectors are going to be getting, they have to be cognizant of the fact that collectors are going to want to see the product.
Yeah.
they're buying.
Like I don't know what the solution is, and I know that's a concern in the Magic the Gathering community because they're also owned by Hasbro, and all the cards come in these like plastic wrap packaging.
Right.
So they're wondering like, how is this going to affect like packs of Magic cards?
Yeah,
Like,
but you could do foil.
yeah.
You could do foil wraps that are probably, I don't know if they're actually recyclable, but you could probably get away with that. I mean,
Yeah.
baseball cards did that for years, right? You had the paper packaging with the bubble gum and everything else. You had like wax paper. Everything was sealed in, and then it went to more of a foil pack. Like, it used to be foil packs were like the tits. That was oh my god, look, these baseball cards coming in a foil pack.
Yeah.
And now that's kind of the standard. I miss collecting baseball cards. It's too much now.
I did for a couple of years. It was fun back in the day, but you know, you're a kid and it's a little different.
Yeah, collecting. I used to get a set of baseball cards for Christmas, like the Topps box set.
Yep.
Like, so I'd keep that sealed, and then every time on Saturday I go to get my dad the newspaper, I got to use the change to buy baseball cards. So
Nice.
I collect this set that way too. So you always had doubles for trading and shit like that.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of baseball cards laying around, but it's not really worth anything anymore.
Yeah, that's the problem. So they don't really, or they stopped retaining value after like the mid '80s. So
Indeed.
anyway, really, that's my week, I guess, in a nutshell. So what have you been up to?
I spent my load too. It's been work and then trying to recover from work and then doing stuff on the weekends and being up late, with lodge stuff.
Yeah.
Rinse and repeat. So I could use a couple of days off myself, to be honest. Just to get shit done around the house, and it's hard.
Yep.
It's very, very hard.
So
adulting sucks, kids.
Yes.
It fucking sucks.
Before we move on to our main topic, I do want to give a plug to our two Michigan listeners, Big Don and Big Lovin'. Solsky and Big Lovin', who do the football wrap-up in our private Facebook group every week.
Yes.
They've been doing a really good job at that, so
It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been fun, and they've made a technology upgrade, which I think is going to help them out a lot.
once they turn it the right direction. But, hey, that's neither here nor there. But yes,
Get in the
So
Cantina. I think they've got a placeholder right now on YouTube also. I saw. Isn't that
do
what
they?
yeah, I'm pretty sure he posted
Okay,
it.
I missed that. Like I'm encouraging them to post the stuff on our YouTube channel, but
I don't know if it's on our YouTube channel. I think he made a spot on YouTube for it.
oh, okay. Either way, yeah.
Don, you're in the chat. Did you guys make a YouTube placeholder? Anyway, if you have it, let us know so we can fucking get it up.
Yeah. So
what she said.
these two guys
Why
they
is your window bigger than mine?
genetics. Anyway, so
You wish. We need to measure biceps again next.
all right. So join our private Facebook group if you're not there already. Search All Things Star Wars on Facebook. These guys are doing Facebook Live with this football show. It's really good. They recap the fantasy football and the NFL for the week, and they touch on the college
Which
also.
is actually really good for us because then we don't have to necessarily go deep diving into fantasy every week because
Right.
they take care of it for us. So.
Exactly. So
Check 'em out.
thanks, gentlemen. Anyway, are you ready to move on to our main topic?
Yes.
All right.
I am so excited.
Yeah,
This is so good.
Yeah, and to reiterate, this was a pick a topic from our loyal listener, Scott Rasmussen.
Patreon listener.
Yes, and one of our Patreon supporters, Scott Rasmussen from the Used and Abused podcast. Again, check them out. They've got social media. They're on Instagram. They're on Facebook. They've got,
They're way better on Instagram than we are.
yeah, quite
They're
frankly.
actually posting.
Yes, they post on a regular basis, whereas we're just a bunch of schmucks who barely post at all. So, yeah, follow them, support Scott and his wife who does the podcast with him because they're awesome. They like music, and that relates into our main topic because
Yes.
Scott said, all right, can you guys order the soundtracks for the movies? After some back and forth, we decided, all right, we'll do a top 5 soundtracks for Star Wars, and that's how we came to this point.
Beer me.
And oh yeah, so you mentioned before this gave us the opportunity to just listen to Star Wars music, and that was the best part of this whole thing. That was the best part of this whole last week for me. Is after we decided this was going to be our topic. Sidebar. So I don't know if I mentioned it on the show here, but you guys know I bought the Chevy Volt a couple of years ago. I've been driving that a lot. However, I've been using that as my commuter vehicle to go to and from work, and I put a shitload of miles on it over the last couple of years. I've only had it for like 2.5 years. I put 30-something thousand miles on it. So because of the commute, that Dave and I both have a very similar commute.
Yep.
In fact, I think his is a little longer than mine. His commute, not anything else.
Ah, too late. Isolate that sound.
Damn it! So, yeah, put a shitload of miles on this thing. So the wife and I have been talking over the last several months about doing a vehicle swap. Opportunity came up. My in-laws moved to Idaho, where Bronco Fenton Company are now, and they were getting rid of one of their vehicles. So it's a Mazda 6. It's from like 2005, 6, something like that. They gave us a good deal on it, and I've been using that as my commuter vehicle. Only problem is I got so used to the console that interacted with my iPhone. You know, I plug in my phone. I have my phone interface right there on the fucking console. I could listen to podcasts, whatever music I had on my phone. It was great. This Mazda 6 from the mid-2000s, not so much. It's got a 6 CD player in
Wow.
it, and then an AM and FM radio. And since I got this commuter car, I've been driving it for over a month now. And since I got it, haven't touched the radio. Haven't touched the radio or the fucking CD player. They still had like a Fall Out Boy CD in there or something from my sister-in-law. But I mean, I never listened to the thing until Scott suggested this topic. And then I'm like, ooh, I'll go into the Sacred Jedi discs. And I grabbed my CDs, and what did I do with it?
Oh.
So I've got all of my old Star Wars CDs that I have saved over the years. And I pulled those out, and I listened to them, and yeah, that's been my entertainment on my commute for the last week or so, is listening to all of the Star Wars soundtracks, with exception of the new stuff. The new stuff I've had to stream, like Force Awakens, Last Jedi, only because I didn't buy those CDs, but I have all the other CDs for all the other soundtracks. So it was fucking great.
Yeah.
It was great just like jamming to that shit as I'm driving to fucking work and home every single day.
So, I have the digital downloads for pretty much all of it.
Yeah.
For Apple Music. Here's a problem I'm having with Apple Music. Tonally, like through my car's stereo system, Apple Music is like 4 or 5 volume bars less than anything else that plays over the Bluetooth or the fucking USB. So, which really pisses me off because I want to fucking hear this shit loud.
Yes.
I mean, I want it to be fucking loud. Like I'm sitting in front of the fucking bass drum as it's going off. Excuse me. So Apple Music wasn't cutting it for me, so I'm like, you know what? Let me check out. I have the Amazon Music.
Yep.
That's the only streaming music I have left.
Which I've had that before too.
Yeah, and all of it was on there.
Yeah.
So that's how I listened to it.
Nice.
Now the only problem with that was I was only getting the remastered copies of the original stuff.
Oh. Okay.
So I went back to Apple Music to listen to some stuff just to validate my own thinking.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think somewhere in the beginning of this process, like, you know, listen to it through the CDs or whether it's Apple Music. I mean, I have the LP of the original Star Wars soundtrack.
Nice.
I think we need to talk a little bit about how we kind of came about our grading before we start.
Sure.
Like, because I know for me, I know this music really, really well.
Oh yeah, me too.
This
obviously.
is, I mean, we've been on John Williams' dick for ever.
Yeah, since the beginning of the podcast.
And we will continue to do that.
Yep.
But I this is, as somebody who enjoys classical music and has an appreciation for it, like these
Same here.
symphonies are the best thing we're going to have in our generation.
Yeah.
Take the movies away from it, and if you're a classical music listener, if you like, I like Gershwin, I like some Tchaikovsky and some.
I'm more of
some
like a
Bach.
Mozart and a Beethoven kind of person.
So sound wise, it's a little bit different, sound and pacing and things like that. Especially Gershwin's a little bit more jazzy for some of his stuff, but regardless. You listen to these works, and these are fucking works of art.
Yeah.
This is the space opera. This is the soundtrack to the most epic space opera ever.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're not familiar with the movies and you're just listening to this music, you can imagine that there's a story behind every one of these notes.
Yep.
Each crescendo, each low point.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing the music so well, I was like, you know what? In order for me to come up with some way to pick a soundtrack to grade, we already talked about which individual tracks.
Yeah, we've already done an episode on that. I should have looked up the episode number, but
I don't remember it either.
yeah, where we did our top 5 favorite individual tracks from the Star Wars soundtrack. So go back and listen to that. This, we're doing just like straight up full soundtracks from beginning to end.
So what I did was I had this mental like point system, kind of like if you were doing a board, like you sit in.
Oh, okay.
So I had basically 0 through 5.
Damn.
For each bit of music, and then I went through. It was like basically the soundtrack that had the most points at the end got rated appropriately.
Wow, mine was not nearly as meticulous as that.
Meticulousness notwithstanding, it made it a lot easier for me to actually move some stuff in between, because the problem, if you will, with listening to these soundtracks in their entirety is it's really tough to differentiate between like, okay, what do I absolutely love and what do I love even more. You know what I mean? It's like trying to pick your favorite kid.
Right.
Like, you might have a favorite, but you're sure shit never going to let them know. So why would you even try and rank them?
Yeah, and here's a question I have for you. When you were listening to them, did you try to differentiate the music from what was actually going on in the movie at that time?
Impossible.
Yeah, same here.
Impossible for me to do.
I tried. I really did, but there was no way.
There were some aspects of, maybe because the soundtracks are really interesting. It's not like if you're, let's say, Duel of the Fates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Portions of Duel of the Fates, it's not like a one-for-one, like taken from the movie and boom, put it into the soundtrack. You can it can ebb and flow into there where the music actually cuts in and some other parts of the soundtrack are cut in. Yeah. So you're not necessarily getting the flow of one thing into another. And it's picking pieces of it. Ray's theme is a good example with the scavenger.
Yep.
And you don't get all of Ray's theme in one burp.
Right.
You're getting a piece of it here, a piece of it here, and the way that it's going based on how the movie is. That's the beauty of the editing.
Yeah.
When you're listening to the soundtrack straight through, it does give you an option to not like, okay, I know what happened when I heard this music in the movie. Right. But the way the music would continue, since it's non-linear sometimes, it gave you appreciation just to be able to listen to the music.
Oh, yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I follow you 100%.
So, anyway, that's how I graded it. I just, so whatever I came up with is based on a weighted system, of each track, and not everyone had the same amount of tracks. I mean, the original music, there's some of them had 23 tracks in them. So, it's like a weighted average. If I had the actual piece of paper that I did this shit on, it was more in my head as much as anything. And just, sometimes I just, sometimes it was a coin flip between, one piece or another.
I felt that way, especially getting into like my top 3. But honestly, like I went more emotion based, and I think I'll get into more of the details as we get to the individual tracks. So,
right.
But yeah, it was fucking great just going back and listening to these soundtracks from beginning to end. And I've got them all loaded in that CD player in my car now, and I may still continue to listen to them.
Yeah, because there's no reason to take them out. I mean, it's like I have a CD, a singular CD in my 2014.
Right.
Why it even would still come with a CD player in 2014 is beyond me. But so I have one CD in there, and that'll be it. Like, oh, I wonder what's in there. Maybe I'll listen to it.
All right, so we're gonna get started, and we're gonna start with me this week.
Yes.
So
do it.
And my first choice is going to be something that I guarantee is not going to be on your list, because when we decided to do this, we talked about how it's not just going to be the movies, though we knew it probably wouldn't be from any other source. We weren't going to limit it to that.
Right.
However, my number 5 choice is a non-movie Star Wars soundtrack.
Can I guess it?
Sure.
It's going to be... Why can't I think of the name of it? Fuck! It's a video game.
It's more than just a video game.
It's more than just a video game.
Yes.
Damn, I was thinking it was going to be the fucking thing with the Force Unleashed.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
So, my number 5
listen to that on YouTube.
Is Shadows of the Empire.
That.
So, this came out in 1996. Take that. So, if you go back and you read things like the Star Wars Insider and some other magazines, because remember, this is kind of before the big break of the internet. The information you had to get was from official sources like that. George Lucas put a lot of effort into Shadows of the Empire as a continuation of the trilogy, or as another episode in the trilogy, because it started off, the main piece of entertainment from this was the book. There was a new novel coming out. Shadows of the Empire took place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And this bridged a gap. And this is an area that still, even in current canon, has barely been explored at all. Now, granted, this has all been shit-canned by Disney since, the buyout and everything. But Lucas made a point to make this he wanted this to be another episodic point in the original saga. And he put a lot of emphasis into the novel, the soundtrack associated with it, and the video game that came a year later, I think. So, yeah, Shadows of the Empire was really big around this time in 96. And this soundtrack, which was done by Joel McNeely, fucking phenomenal.
It is very good.
Because he sticks to the John Williams style. He uses all of the same instruments.
As opposed to what Michael Giancarlo did with
Rogue One.
Yeah, so it was a more his flavor of what he thought John Williams was, but it was different. Like
this guy, the Joel McNeely, he stuck with all of the same instruments, a lot of the same flutes, the chimes, and the different things that John Williams throws into his soundtracks that you don't hear in some of this other material. And
I use the word tonally.
Tonally, yes.
It has the same. The pacing is a little bit different sometimes, but overall it has the same feeling to it.
Right. And this guy, he really captured that Star Wars feeling with this Shadows of the Empire soundtrack. And again, this is the soundtrack to a book. So he took the content of the novel and created a symphonic soundtrack to that, in the style of Star Wars. And it was fucking really good, because he created a ton of new original themes that would reoccur throughout the course of the soundtrack. And it all came to this big crescendo in the final track, track 10, which I encourage every single person listening, look this up on YouTube. I looked it up a couple days ago, and this entire soundtrack is on YouTube.
Yep.
So
that's how I listen to it.
Yeah, track 10, The Destruction of Xizor's Palace, which Xizor is spelled Xizor. I just remember them clarifying in the Star Wars Insider that that's how you pronounce his name, was Xizor. So,
very good.
Yeah, track 10, The Destruction of Xizor's Palace. Fucking phenomenal piece of orchestration. really, really good. I cannot express enough how good this fucking thing was. And this is the only non-John Williams content that I have on my list, but I felt it was worth mentioning. This was like half of the soundtrack of my 1996. It was like this and No Doubt and fucking Ace of Base were like the soundtracks of my fucking... Yeah, so Joel McNeely, Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, really, really good. George Lucas put a lot of effort behind making Shadows of the Empire something bigger than just, another novel in the expanded universe.
I have to give a lot of credit to... I have to give credit to the composers who have to try and follow something with John Williams.
Yeah.
You know, I think he probably was the closest to getting to something that was going to be in my top 5.
Yep.
Because in that soundtrack there is some John Williams composition
mixed
in with it.
Yes, he does reintroduce a lot of it. Like the second track, Leia's Nightmare. It's basically a rehash because in the beginning of the book, she's having a nightmare where she's reliving Han being frozen in carbonite, and it's that whole orchestration over again of Han, of the kiss, and then Han going down into the fucking carbonite chamber. Right. So,
that particular track. Some of the video game tracks that I tried to pick up, like thinking about which video games, since I don't have any video games or anything else besides the actual movie score in mine. So unless you do,
no, that's my only non-movie soundtrack on this list.
I'll say that there's a lot of really, really good symphonic orchestration in some video games. I mean, the Medal of Honor soundtrack is fucking phenomenal. Shadows of the Empire is very good. There's some stuff in The Force Unleashed that is outside of the John Williams scope that I thought was decent, but none of it was enough to crack my top 5. But I will give you others deserving mention for sure for Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah,
non-canonical, just something that in its time was the best we're going to get.
Yeah,
it wasn't for another year where we got the re-release. Because when they re-released the movies in '97, they also pushed the soundtracks out too.
Oh yeah, which, by the way, I have the special edition soundtracks on CD.
Yep.
These are not what I listen to, by the way. When I listen to the original trilogy, I listen to the remastered original trilogy soundtracks. Which, by the way, do I have a case for that? Anyway,
I'm actually so. In preparation for today, I actually thought about grabbing the LP from home. I think I brought it in already to show everybody, but I have something I picked up on eBay for like $15. If you want something that is going to stand the test of time, like those vinyl records, those like heavy grain vinyl records, is something that you could have a player sitting anywhere. You could be sitting getting dusty for fucking decades.
Yep.
With a record. If you store the record properly, don't let it get warped. If you store it up and down like it's supposed to be.
Right.
But if you do all those things, in fucking a half a century from now, you can find a power source, plug in a fucking record player, and it's going to play.
Yeah.
It's because of... I was thinking about it. Like, how do I have all of this music digitally, right? All of it. And I've got some of the CDs. None of them I could really put my finger on. But the records are something that's going to outlast, like, in 50 years, how are you going to play a CD if you don't have, like, a fucking old laptop or something?
Right, and
think of the laser technology and the shit that, like, all the little moving parts to make that work.
And I was led to believe that CDs actually have, like, a half-life.
They do have a half-life.
Where, like, over time, they will eventually just degrade, no matter how well you store them.
Sunlight will degrade it.
Well, yeah.
I mean, so heat, sunlight, things like that will degrade a CD to the point where it won't be used. That's why storing, like, pictures, like, oh, here's all my family photos are on CD. Wrong. Get that shit on the cloud somewhere. Get it on a thumb drive or an SSD.
Yep.
Something that doesn't have a lot of moving parts that is going to be able to be read.
Yeah.
You'll be way better off.
I noticed in the chat, sorry to sidebar here, but Bronco Fett actually asked, he wanted to know my opinion of the Shadows of the Empire soundtrack. Did he say that before?
Before.
That's great. Good. And yeah, he mentioned that there is a slideshow. Like, it's also like a digital CD where if you throw it into a computer, again, this was in '96, there's a slideshow with a lot of artwork on there. So.
Yeah, this kind of reinvigorated my wanting to get into the LP world.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like it's been real faddish, right? So like, oh wow, everybody's buying vinyl again. People are releasing shit in vinyl. Like, cool. If I wanted to get The Force Awakens on vinyl right now, it would cost me $45. Yeah, and I'm like, that's a little steep.
But it would probably sound fucking phenomenal.
It would sound great. It would.
Yeah.
I'd have to get a better record player, honestly. The one I have right now is decent, but I'd want something that's really going to fucking knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's my whole push. Like, we talked about the CDs, and it made me think about the records. It's like, while the record capacity isn't going to be the same as the CD, you're not playing pictures on it or anything else, but having that and dusting it off and finding a record player to put it on, you're way more likely to be able to play it a century from now than you would a CD.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that makes me think I need to re-rip these soundtracks, I think, soon.
Yeah, get them.
So anyway, that was my number 5.
All
So
right.
your number 5.
My number 5 is Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back.
Really? That's interesting that it's in that position.
It's my number 5.
Okay.
So there's a lot of good music in Empire. As we're talking about individual tracks, I think the track that jumps out at you the most is the Imperial March. It's something that really, when you think of Star Wars, there's a few musical notes that you can put together that that's Star Wars, and the Imperial March is one of them. There is a lot of emotion in that soundtrack because it's a darker movie.
Yeah.
But there's highs go to deep lows.
It's so funny. You're saying like the exact same notes that that I was gonna say, but no, that's good. Keep going.
But I think the Imperial March is really what stands out for me as far as whatever track that is. Sidebar, totally related to what we're talking about. If you're not listening, if you're a casual listener to like the soundtracks, especially for Star Wars, and you're trying to get an idea of what that soundtrack is like, go immediately to the last track. Go to the credits.
Yes, because that's always like the most grandiose.
The credits are going to give you it's going to touch on pretty much all the different tones of what's going on in the movie.
Yeah, it rehashes every major theme throughout the course of it.
Almost all of them do. Some of them don't do it as well as others. Like, not every one of the credit tracks are equal, obviously.
Right, but you get a good sampling.
It is a good sampling. So if you're not necessarily don't want to sit through 2.5 hours of music, which I don't know why you wouldn't, but whatever, you can listen to that credit track, and that's something that in Star Wars, that's probably the only movie where I'd actually sit through the end just to listen to the music at the end.
And
it's not a Marvel movie. I know there's not going to be some bullshit at the end that I got to fucking wait for and be like, oh, look, Thor jerked himself off. I don't know. Blah, 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 blah. No, I don't have to worry about any of that. I can just fucking enjoy the music. And probably pee myself.
Oh, yeah. Sidebar on that. I was actually thinking about this recently, and I think no matter what, with Rise of Skywalker, I'm probably going to stay until they turn the lights back on in the theater.
Because this is John Williams. Oh, hola. Gracias.
Thank you.
Wow. Nice.
Oh, they did have a selection. Yeah. Okay.
This is
Thank you.
I was just trying to get you to get upset.
Oh. As she does. Thank you.
We're drinking Yingling Oktoberfest, which is what I brought over and Kristen so deliciously brought. Because this week is Oktoberfest.
Damn right.
So, and I've got a pilot friend who is on vacation over there right now.
Jawohl.
Jawohl. Yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, we're talking about staying until the end credits.
Stay until the end. Absolutely. Yeah. This is John Williams' last full effort that we're going to get.
So I'm going to stay for every note of that last moment in the credits with Rise of Skywalker.
Absolutely.
So
if I have to pee myself, so be it.
Yep. I'm not going to chime in on your selection because I have some things to say when it comes to me. Okay. But let's just move right to your number 4.
All right. My number 4 is Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
Okay. Interesting.
So, again, remembering how I graded this, right? So I listened to the soundtrack in its entirety, and I had, basically there was enough 5s in Episode 3 for me to put this in my top 5.
Okay.
2 that stands out. Anakin versus Obi-Wan.
The Battle of the Heroes.
They're two different tracks.
Oh.
So Battle of Heroes has portions of, this is where I was talking about where it's not necessarily linear.
Okay.
Battle of Heroes and Obi-Wan versus Anakin, or Anakin versus Obi-Wan, that's 2 tracks on the soundtrack.
Oh, okay.
So Battle of Heroes has elements of the Obi-Wan versus Anakin,
Okay.
but it's its own track. And to me, even it surpasses Battle of Heroes as far as what's the better track.
Shit,
So
I got to go
listen
back and re-listen to those now
listen
and
to it,
compare
because
the two.
You think that you're listening to the same track, but as it plays out and you start getting into that point where this is not necessarily following something in the movie, this is just the music.
Mm-hmm.
And you just sit there and listen to the music. And you can... It's like any other piece of... Especially something that's associated with opera or whatever. Like, the intent is to tell the story.
Yeah.
And you can put a story to this music.
Yep.
Even if you didn't necessarily see it directly in the movie. For me, also, this is the best end credits. This is the best, just talking about this is like, I think it's 13 minutes or 12 minutes, 29 seconds, something like that.
For the end credit
For
portion?
the end credit portion. It's
Oh,
one of
okay.
the longer ones, and it's also, what I think happened was, this is the end of this episodic portion with
Right.
no like forecast on that we're going to do the sequel trilogy.
Right, and I think Lucas's opinion at this point, because he still owned the property, was this is it.
This is it.
Yeah.
So the end credit music encompasses portions of the entirety of all 6 movies.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting some of Leia's theme. You're getting some of the throne room.
Yeah.
You're getting those portions are in the end of Revenge of the Sith. So that right there, like as far as just the end credits, because you really get an appreciation for the fact that like this is we're gonna get something similar with
Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, probably.
We're gonna have something similar. You're gonna get just a full orgasmic flavoring of the entirety of the movie. And if you don't fucking just break down at some point when you're sitting there realizing that this is the end of it, like even. Like, okay, episode 3, whatever. It was, early 2000s, and I don't know. Nobody could forecast that we're going to do the movies again, but for me and my maturity level at that point in time, I would have never. I don't think I would have taken it. If there's just 44-year-old Dave sitting in a movie theater at that time with episode 3, I probably would have had some sort of feelings about it.
Sure, yeah.
I know going into Rise of Skywalker that John Williams is getting to an age point that he's not going to be able to continue to do this.
Yeah,
so
you just
I
can't...
have to fucking appreciate this as potentially the last time that he scores a fucking Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
And I'm going to... I know. I'll break down. I know I will.
Yeah.
But I think another reason that episode 3 breaks my top 5 is because of that. Is because it had that feeling of finality to it. It was like they're tying off this portion, and so there was elements to so many other things that went into it.
Yeah.
I think it was a really good soundtrack.
And I know we mentioned this before when we did the beginning, the documentary from episode 1, where they had that scene where Lucas and John Williams were doing the score, where they were doing Duel of the Fates.
Right.
And I think John Williams actually said, do you want to try one without the choir, without the vocals and Lucas is like, no, because this is going to lead right into the 3rd episode. It's going to be a very similar sounding battle, but it's going to be between Anakin and Obi-Wan. And that just shows the foresight of Lucas. And really the Battle of the Heroes / Anakin versus Obi-Wan. Beautiful piece of music. I mean, so good. Yeah, and that's all I got to say about that.
The triumph of good over evil, in that particular moment. When, from what the storyteller's perspective, right?
Yeah.
That's the intent of that, is like, he has the high ground.
Yeah.
Anakin, it's over. I have the high ground.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, it's the best music ever. And, then foolishly jumps into the fucking lightsaber and,
I saw in a Star Wars group
I
today the meme where it's the kid from The Simpsons, the kind of partially retarded kid, and
Chief Wiggins' son.
Yeah, and he's like, jumping through the window, but it's like Anakin holding the lightsaber going into a pool of lava, and it's like
I'm in danger.
Yeah. So I saw that meme today, which is just funny. So all right, is that enough about your number 4?
Yep, that's good enough.
All right, my number 4 is The Force Awakens. It was
Wow, that low.
trust me, dude. This was tough. Like 4, 3 and 2 could have all been intermixed for me because it was that close. Number 1 was a pretty clear cut, but yeah, Force Awakens, it was so good, and one of the most outstanding tracks, which you already mentioned, the Scavenger Ray's theme, so good. But there was other really good stuff going on in this soundtrack, and it really felt like a revitalization of Star Wars musically because John Williams hadn't done it in 10 or so years, because I felt Revenge of the Sith kind of fell flat for me. Aside from the Battle of the Heroes, most of the rest of that soundtrack fell a little flat for me.
Okay.
So it felt like this was sort of a John Williams kind of like revitalizing and coming back, because all kinds of really good new themes. But the one that obviously sticks out for me is the Scavenger Ray's theme. So good. I could listen to that on a fucking loop over and over again for a very long time.
And honestly, I have. When that soundtrack first came out,
Yeah.
I definitely listened to that a lot. I won't belabor any of those points. They're
Yeah.
all excellent, and I have that more to say on that later.
Yep. So for me, my number 3 is, I'm gonna pull this up.
Please don't.
The Phantom Menace, Episode 1.
Number 3.
Again, very, very tough. A lot. 4, 3, and 2 could have been intermixed, but Phantom Menace I found was another revitalization of John Williams, because this was, 16 years? Hold on. 83 to 99. Yeah, 16 years from the end of Return of the Jedi to Episode 1. And Return of the Jedi, I also feel, after re-listening to these, we might as well talk about this now, I felt like Return of the Jedi was kind of monotone as far as Star Wars soundtracks go. You listen to some of these leading up to Return of the Jedi, and going into this episode, I really thought Jedi was going to be pretty high on my list. It's not in my top 5. Spoiler alert.
I will say the same thing. I'll piggyback on that. And hey, piggies.
Yeah.
Jedi was, in my mind, Jedi was higher on my list, like in my top 3.
Yeah, I was the same way.
And I was expecting that. And I listened to it in order.
Yep.
I listened to it in order of episodes.
Of episodes, yeah, I did the same thing.
So by the time I had gotten to Jedi, my expectation of what I thought it was not met.
Yeah.
And it was really surprising.
Same here.
There's a few really, really good tracks on there. And even like the going into the finale with the Ewok celebration music, like there's portions of Jedi where you get to like
Which is good. Don't get me wrong. It's still a good soundtrack, and I would listen to it again.
Oh, fuck yeah. But that's like we're talking about the things that make it in our top 5.
Yeah.
I remember specific tracks, but the soundtrack in its entirety was, to me, I expected more of it, and and that wasn't met.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. It felt very muted, very like, if you think about the rest of his soundtracks and everything that's going on, Jedi feels very monotone. It just feels like, obviously, notable tracks in the Episode 1 soundtrack, Duel of the Fates. I mean,
Obviously.
For fuck's sake, what else can you say about that? And then another one that really stuck out for me was, and I think we talked about this when we did our retrospective look at Episode 1, was going into the Gungan City. When they're swimming down, there's that choir type thing.
Yeah.
Very, very moody, but I really, really enjoyed that. And the Episode 1 soundtrack in general, just really, really good overall.
Yeah, that was your number 3, right?
Number 3.
So, just to continue the conversation, my number 3 is also Phantom Menace.
Nice.
Okay? And Duel of the Fates, obviously. My thing with Phantom Menace was, this is probably the furthest from what we're used to with John Williams than we ever get.
Sure.
There's stuff in Last Jedi with Canto Bight, and there's a couple of tracks that are real similar. I mean, let's face it. In Last Jedi, even John Williams, without seeing the scene, Canto Bight is actually okay. The soundtrack.
Yeah.
But then you add the fucking pictures to it, and you just want to shoot yourself. But we're not talking about that. For Episode 1, it was to put color to it. To me, this seems like the movie itself and the soundtrack too were just a little bit brighter. I don't know, think sunrises, think early beginnings, think
Yeah,
yellows
yeah.
and oranges and things like that. The colors were brighter.
Before
Whereas-
the dark times.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's deliberate. I think that's deliberate part of the filmmaking is as we get further, like if we're in the beginning and the music even it's a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
You know, the pace is a little bit faster. It's until you get to the. I think what makes Duel of the Fates and for me Qui-Gon's Noble End,
Oh,
like
yeah.
those tracks, I think what makes those so stand out is because of it's quick, it's light. You know, it seems like very different than suddenly then boom Duel of the Fates and it's like everything just it comes down and slows and it's like a big impact, choral, like all these elements that are like just wow, and that's. I kind of ran the same problem as you did. Like my 2 and 3 were very flexible.
Mm-hmm.
This could have very easily been there as my number 2, but yeah, John Williams coming back after a hiatus to do the movie. It was deliberately different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It
And-
was very different from what we had seen in the original
Yeah.
trilogy with the choir and everything else. Like he went in some different directions, but it worked.
Yeah,
in this one.
I would agree. And you can't say enough. Like when John Williams goes to do these scores, he's going and he's going to the London Symphony.
Yeah.
So he's going to the best artists in there. And well, you know what? I'll save that for later. I'll save that for the end. But
right.
I have something to say about that. Like going to the same symphony and why that's important.
Sure. Yeah.
So anyway, anything else on episode 1?
I don't think so.
It's
I think
good.
Yeah.
It's fucking good.
Like despite the movie itself,
Right.
the soundtrack.
The
phenomenal.
soundtrack to me is better on its own than the movie is necessarily.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about Star Wars. Everything is great.
Yeah. But
Some things are just greater than others.
Yeah. If we have to rank them, this one's right there
exactly.
towards the top, number 3.
So my number 2.
Okay. This is gonna get good.
Okay, so my number 2 is The Force Awakens.
Okay.
For very similar reasons to The Phantom Menace, we're talking about this awakening. And I really, really thought about it. I was like, why the fuck do I like this soundtrack so much?
Mhm.
And the reality is, I was listening to it at a point in my life where I could appreciate it more. I think I was a little bit more mature. I can listen to the music and just... My appreciation for the soundtrack has gone from, you know, oh, it's great, Stone Williams, blah, 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 everything he does is great. And then that's all true,
Yeah.
but to really feel and get into the music and let it be by itself. And really, like Bronco Fett mentioned, he's he's got a most relaxing thing ever is his Star Wars soundtrack that he put in a playlist on iTunes.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
I believe it.
because you can visualize the movies. It's something it's kind of like a warm blanket, you know, you kind of put on. With The Force Awakens, there were a lot of elements that were different than the original soundtrack, the original trilogy, but in that revitalization mode, in the anticipation of having something, and it was presented so in front of us so well
Yeah.
that, I mean, race theme to me is the top track on there.
Yep.
But the Falcon, when they're getting in the chase,
Yep.
like when she gets on the hunk of junk,
Yeah.
and fucking takes off, that entire sequence.
The garbage
in there-
will do.
Yeah, that entire sequence.
It was really good. And
It honestly, it may even be better than Ray's theme.
oof.
It may even be because you can just strap in because you know whatever's never seeing the movie and listening to that track, you know things are happening, things are going up, things are going down. You know, like there's somebody's being chased. It's the impact is so it's right there. It's right there, and so many of these tracks on the Force Awakens soundtrack go there.
Yep.
It's like you know exactly what's going on in the movie by listening to the music. And if you're not watching the movie and just listening to the music, it's telling the story.
And obviously, there's a lot to be said about the Force theme, I guess you call it. The end of the movie, Rey bringing the lightsaber to her hand.
Dude,
Even though it's
you want me to have a fucking hard on right now.
Yeah. Even though it's not a theme that was introduced in this movie, obviously that moment at that point in the
Yeah.
movie, that piece of music, fucking flawless. Fucking flawless.
To put now, there's in my other deserving mention, I'll hit on that point a little bit more because that's one of those moments where in the movie I have goosebumps thinking about it
Yeah.
right now. That just that particular scene when that happens because the music is playing in my fucking head, whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
If I'm thinking about that scene, the music makes everything.
Yeah.
And for me, The Force Awakens in its entirety, pretty fucking good.
Yep. So, we ready to move to my number 2?
Let's do it.
All right. So, my number 2 is Episode 4, A New Hope. Now,
Okay.
I have a feeling I should probably hold my comments for a couple of minutes.
Probably.
All right. So, that being said, we're going to move right to my number 1.
Okay.
My number 1, The Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
So, I know if you've listened to the show for a long period of time, all the way back to our very first episode, and then this was like 20 episodes ago where we reordered the movies.
Right.
But every time we've talked about the movies and we've ordered them in like favorite to least favorite, Empire Strikes Back has been, fairly middle of the road in my lists. And the soundtrack, though, going back and listening, and I kind of knew going into this episode that the soundtrack was probably going to be pretty high anyway. Going back and re-listening to them, it was no question whatsoever that Empire Strikes Back was my number 1. Despite how I feel about the movie in like the order of favorite to least favorite movie,
Oh yeah.
the fucking soundtrack is just incredible. And you mentioned it before. It's an ebb and flow. It's so many different emotions. It's like so many different things coming at you from so many different directions. It's like John Williams' version of the White Album. It's he's you're going in so many different directions.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, and I mean, it starts off like kind of solemn, with the probe droids going out, but then immediately it starts picking up with the Wampa, and then going down again, and then up again. You're introduced to so many new themes, like the fucking the Han and Leia love theme, which we see countless times throughout the course of the rest of the saga.
Right.
You're introduced to the Imperial March, like you talked about. Aside from Star Wars, pop culture in general, the Imperial March is fucking huge. But then you get into things.
College football games. You can't sit in a college football game without the band kicking off, like the blue band at a Penn State game. They're playing the Imperial March at some point during the fucking game.
Yeah.
Among other things.
A track that I think is very underrated, which I don't know what the exact verbiage of it is, but it's Yoda's theme.
Yeah.
Yoda's theme is such an important.
I think it's Arrival on Dagobah or something like that.
Right.
Or Jedi Master Revealed or some shit like that.
Right. And
I know exactly what you're talking about.
and it's the original version of Yoda's theme is really good because it's light, but it's very similar to the Force theme, but it's also got kind of a playful, like chipper thing, but then it gets more serious as you go along deep in the track. And then later when it's revisited at the point in the movie where Yoda lifts the X-Wing out of the fucking swamp, that's like really that is one of the most emotional moments in the entire original trilogy. Is that moment. It's very telling. And you listen to the soundtrack and just that part and you're like, oh. Where you listen to where John Williams, like, where he adds, like, the flutes in there, like, do-do-do-do-do-do, and he, like, adds, like, in the chimes and everything else. And it's so emotional listening to that Yoda theme when he's lifting that fucking X-Wing out. And then you go to, like, when Han's frozen. You get that rehash of the love theme when they kiss right before Han goes down. And it's just... Like you said, it's a roller coaster of fucking emotions and different tones. And one of my favorite Star Wars tracks of all time, which if you go back and listen to when we did individual tracks, the fucking asteroid theme, like going through the asteroid field, fucking love that track. Absolutely love it. It's, like hearing that do 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 do, and C-3PO is going crazy, and oh look at that one, oh look at that one, oh look out, or was that Family Guy? Either way.
Yeah, that was
Right.
Family Guy, but same music.
Yes, but I mean, for me, Empire Strikes Back, regardless of how I feel about the movie, and after listening to these soundtracks, by the way, I kind of want to go back and rewatch that movie. Just to kind of think maybe I was giving it more of a hard time than it deserves. but
There is something to be said, if we're going to just sidebar for a minute away from the soundtrack. There's something to be said for, like, we talked very early in the podcast, like, first episodes, we're talking about, like, the Machete Order and how we watch these movies.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you watch the way we just listened, right, because I think you did the same thing I did. I went from episode 1
Yep.
and I listened to the Clone Wars also.
Oh, okay.
Portions of the Clone Wars too.
I did not listen to that.
Yeah, because I had it in my my playlist already.
Okay.
And there's a couple in there. Like, episode 5 being number 5 in my list is there. All the things that you just mentioned are fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
But in the weight that I chose to assign to things, it just that's where it fell.
Yeah.
But watching in numerical order, I think the only hang up you might have is that the sound, the actual recording sound, is going to be not quite as good, even in the remastered. Like, if you're... So, I don't know. I don't know if you still have that. Like, the way I hear things, I'm, like, super sensitive to, like, changes in frequency.
Yeah.
I think that's why I have tinnitus, because of how... like, legitimately.
Sure.
Years of being under active noise reduction and everything else, I think it's affected how I hear. And I can hear the difference in the recording and the audio itself.
Okay.
And it makes the original trilogy soundtrack sound a little bit older.
Right.
But musically, if you put everything in the same, for lack of the same color group, then put everything on the same line. Listening to it in order makes you appreciate, if you're watching it in that order, then you're going to, when Empire Strikes Back comes up, it's going to punch you straight in the fucking mouth.
Yeah.
Because it's going to take you all the assumptions that you made in episode 4 with Han and Leia, with, Lando ends up being a traitor.
Yeah.
Darth Vader showing up at fucking dinner. 3PO getting blasted, the Carbonite, Boba Fett, all that shit. Like, it'll make you appreciate how much impact episode 5 really has.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, when we were kids, Return of the Jedi was the fucking tits.
Yep.
Pigmen, Ewoks, the whole fucking bit.
Yep.
But the soundtrack didn't quite live up to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into The Force Awakens, and it's like, here's the impact again.
Yeah.
Here's all the feeling. Here's this new character.
Yeah.
Here's these impact elements, the chases and things like that. The only real chase sequence you have in Return of the Jedi comes when they're on the speeders in the forest.
Right. And really, I don't think there is much of a soundtrack to that. And, it's funny because listening to them in order, listening to Empire and then going to Return of the Jedi, that's what affected my experience with Jedi. I'm like, compared to, like, that emotional roller coaster that I just went on with Empire, Return of the Jedi is just kind of, So, that being said, no way.
What? No fucking way.
Oh, Jedi Outcast, the old PC game.
Oh.
Sorry, in the chat, Isaac Sight mentioned that Jedi Outcast is coming out for the Switch
I was
tomorrow.
thinking Jedi
Fallen Order. Yeah. We're like, what? I thought that was
like,
supposed to be out for like 2 more months.
Oh, my nipples!
Yeah. So anyway, moving on right to your number 1.
Which at this point, you can guess.
Yeah.
It's obviously A New Hope.
Yep.
Listen. I'm not going to make any excuses for this decision. I listened to everything in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
I deliberately did not go back to things from A New Hope and for comparison purposes or anything else. I really wanted the other music to kind of play itself out. The reality is, I want this movie. I want to be buried with this movie.
Yeah.
I want this. If somehow this soundtrack can be playing in my, however I'm entombed for eternity, like make a little nuclear reactor to fucking somehow it makes things happen.
Yeah.
I would do it. You can't possibly, for me, you can't possibly take the emotion from Star Wars. I mean, this is it. This is the beginning. This is the fucking foundational piece that makes everything else work. This is where John Williams steps in and shows us that the soundtrack is what makes this fucking movie.
Right, which we've talked about before in the past. Like,
without this is just a fucking other movie that doesn't, maybe it does okay, but this soundtrack makes it what it is from the beginning. The fucking 20th Century Fox in the beginning.
Yeah,
even
the fanfare and everything else.
Yeah, the fanfare. You're on Tatooine. You're the twin sons.
Yeah.
When you have Luke
coming
out, like the emotional impact, the wandering wayfarer that he wants to be, and staring off into the distance. You feel it. Like you feel every fucking note of it. Like what you're describing for Empire, I felt every note of A New Hope.
Oh, and don't get me wrong, New Hope was my number 2, so it was really close.
But for me, it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Like number 1 was, and I knew it going into it, and I really, really, really tried. I really tried to not I'm gonna find reasons to not make that my number 1.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the musical elements for that movie are it's everything. It's everything that makes me love. I said it to Big Sweet today. There's not a more perfect movie.
Yeah.
Like this saga that is Star Wars. There's nothing more perfect. We'll never ever ever get this again.
Yeah.
Ever. And to have one artist in John Williams be the composer for the entirety of this. A couple of things, outliers here and there, but the reality is the Skywalker saga is nothing without John Williams.
And we've been very fortunate that he's been here the whole time,
This is our equivalent to having Johann Sebastian Bach, and having a Mozart, and having somebody whose ear can portray so much in a sound. And I'm going to get into this is where the London Symphony Orchestra plays a huge part.
Right.
By going if you've gone and listened to different orchestras, right? Each orchestra has a different sound. It depends on the venue they're in, the buildings, whatever. Like Fantasia, one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah.
Right. And
really
the reason is, again, it's because of the score.
Yeah.
Like it's multiple different things. You got Handel, you have things from Bach, you have Tchaikovsky, you have all these different really well-known orchestrators and composers, but it's put into a way with the animation, like the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Like if you wanted to ask me take Star Wars completely out of the equation, then Sorcerer's Apprentice is what sits at the top of this pyramid.
Yeah.
Before any of the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, it's really good.
But because again, it's just one of those things. Like I can hear it in my head right now. And that's done with the Philadelphia Philharmonic Orchestra.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Did the original score for Fantasia.
Oh, nice.
So like I have an original soundtrack for Fantasia.
Oh, no shit.
That's with the Philadelphia Orchestra. It's fucking phenomenal.
Nice.
Fucking phenomenal. Nobody else even comes close to making it sound the same way as they did.
Right.
In that venue at that time.
Sure, yeah.
So it's the same thing with the London Symphony Orchestra. In that venue, you have these are the best artists, the best violinists, the best at everything. They're playing for the London Symphony Orchestra. This is the top. This is the tits for them. And for John Williams to go in there, and it tells you that this is not just a guy who composes movie scores. This is not fucking what's his nuts? Shit. We're gonna have to do the whole thing with
Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman. It's not like that.
Yeah.
This guy is the composer of our time. And for me, Star Wars: A New Hope is the foundational piece.
Yeah.
This is the everything.
Oh, it's fucking phenomenal. And he uses in his soundtracks instruments and compositions that you just don't hear in other movie soundtracks. He's very grandiose, very classical music.
Yeah.
Like
this is an opera.
Yeah.
This is truly a space opera, and when you have a full orchestra doing this music, not a small, so many piece orchestra. You're talking about the full complement, having every horn,
Yep.
Every horn being perfectly in sync to make the particular sound. Case in point is the Throne Room. My number one favorite Star Wars song. Refer to that episode.
Big on the horns on that one.
Hands up, how many alive for New Hope? I was. But that's like the Throne Room as the lead into it. Like you think about it in the movie. Like you got Han and Luke and Chewbacca. They're coming around the corner and standing there with all the troops as they're getting ready to face forward. And this, you think at this point in the movie, this movie the intention was to stand alone.
Right. Yeah. It was never meant to be part of this big saga that we have now.
This was the finale.
Yeah.
And then there's elements to this particular piece that are very similar to like some Gershwin pieces that I like, where you have like, I'll call it the dragging horn.
Yeah,
where it's like, like Gershwin does that in pieces. Like Rhapsody in Blue, he has some of that. And nerds! But,
no, I like it.
But those elements in that, it's like, fuck, man, every goddamn time. That is my hype music.
Yeah.
That is my fucking life sucks, eat a bag of dicks, I want to fucking drive off a cliff. Let me throw some music on. That music is most likely going to be something like this. Let's start with that. And let me fucking repeat it before it even gets to the refrain. I'm going to go hit back and then start it again and start it again, because every fucking time it makes my nipples hard. It gives me the goosebumps. I feel like I can do anything because it takes me to an emotional level that it's an immediate relief. It's an immediate like fucking A right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's none of the other music in this. Like I get the feels for almost everything, but that track, why it's my number one track and why this is my number one soundtrack, is because I can put this on at any time in my life where I feel like I'm down in the lows. Then like, let me put something in my life that'll help me level off. And this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. It's a New Hope from start to finish, and the finish is fucking phenomenal.
It is good. It
is the cherry on top of the whipped cream on top of the fucking orgasmic ice cream, that is all the Star Wars soundtracks.
Yep. And I was thinking like the whipped cream on Ali Larter's tits in what's that football movie with Dawson?
Friday Night Lights?
No.
Oh, fuck.
It was more of a lighthearted movie. Help us out in the chat.
Captain Ireland in that?
No,
that's a different one.
no.
That was
Anyway,
Sinbad.
yeah. So Scott in the chat, Scott Rasmussen from the All Things or from the
Used and Abused
podcast.
Podbelly.
Too many beers. He mentions that he actually chose to play the trumpet because of Star Wars and John Williams. So our music man played the trumpet because of John Williams.
So what's really sad is that my family, like especially on my mother's side, but my father's side too, all this musical inclination.
Yeah.
I got none of it. Before I hit puberty, I was in a choir, but nothing like church choir or whatever, right? Whereas one of my cousins was in the Philadelphia Boys Choir, like that level of musicianship.
Damn.
And he's dating a fucking opera singer.
Nice.
And like everybody has some musical inclination. I didn't get shit. Like I could say fuck on the fucking podcast, and I'm a really good fucking aviator.
There you go.
That's it. That's my talent. That's it.
Yeah.
Which hey, it served me pretty well over the years. But
I'd say so.
Sometimes like when even Kathy, my wife Kathy, she's taking piano lessons, and it's fucking great. And I'm like I would get so frustrated that I would start eating fucking keys.
Trust me, I've been trying for years to play the piano. If you look in that corner back there, you'll see that fucking piano that I've been trying for years to fucking teach myself on. But that's a whole other story.
That's the thing. We can't teach ourselves everything.
Yeah.
You think that you can.
Because I'm a man, goddammit. I can do whatever I want.
I do what I want.
Yeah. So, but... And going back to your number one, the only reason why Empire was slightly ahead of A New Hope for me was because I feel like John Williams, like, he got more complex with Empire Strikes Back. A lot more intermixing of the instruments, just more complex composures. And it was just parts of A New Hope to me felt a little, not flat, but just a little like average compared to all the different things that's going on with Empire Strikes Back. Maybe that's like a what's the fucking can't sit still, fucking got to move all the
Like some
time.
ADHD.
ADHD, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that's the ADHD in me, where it's like I gotta have like constant changes and constant, differentials and everything, compared to New Hope, that's much more level, I'd say. But with Empire Strikes Back, it was just like fucking going all over the place.
I can see that, because if you have, think of it on an oscilloscope, right? You got, Star Wars is kind of here, then Empire is deliberately taking you
Yes.
and porpoising, and then whereas Jedi kind of flattens back out again to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, honestly, that's kind of the last time you see that, because even Episode 2 soundtrack, not to put anything, all of these are really good.
Right.
They're really, really good. Episode 2 had some elements that I didn't even remember being in the movie, but the finale for Episode 2 is actually is pretty good.
Yeah. It almost made my cut, Episode 2, honestly.
Yeah, it was. There was some really, really good tracks in there,
Yeah.
and if you're, it's one of those things where you don't have to be a music nerd to fucking be into this.
Sure,
you can sit there and listen and go, wow, because there's Star Wars all over it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll be listening to it, and all of a sudden you'll hear like something really, really Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like I'd be sitting there and just appreciating it and just listening to it, and all of a sudden they'll be like, oh, that's it. They're reaching back to, a portion of Leia's theme.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Like, if you think about A New Hope soundtrack, right, and how much Princess Leia's theme is intertwined with so much of the other soundtracks.
Yep.
It's the emphasis point that if you're listening to it and you want to understand that Leia is a part of this, boom, they fucking put it in there. And you know exactly what it is when you hear it.
Yep.
Because that's Leia's theme. And that's the other beauty of this.
Yeah.
All of these movies that we're listening to, you can associate things with Luke. You can associate things with Han. The most probably telling one is with Leia,
Yeah.
because that's the most prominent one. There's not really one for Padme.
No.
There's no real this is Padme's theme.
Right.
Where they did that with Rey.
We've got Rey's theme for sure.
Yeah, Rey's elements carry into Last Jedi, because I listened to Last Jedi actually with some hope that it was going to make my top 5.
Right. I
Same
almost
thing
thought
with
it was
Solo.
going to.
Same thing with Solo, because I really like Solo's soundtrack.
Yeah, it's not
I
bad.
like it way better than Rogue One soundtrack.
Yeah.
I listened to Rogue One soundtrack, I almost threw up. I was more annoyed because I listened to it after I listened to episode. I listened to after episode 4,
Okay.
which is out of order.
Sure.
But that just happens to be where it kind of fell in the playlist. I don't know. But I listened to a lot of the John Williams stuff and then went into that. And I was annoyed. I was really annoyed, because the stuff that annoyed me when I first heard it annoyed me even more after sitting there and listening to nothing but John Williams music for 20 plus hours.
Yeah.
Those elements of that in Rogue One really fucking annoyed me.
I can see that.
And I don't want him to do another Star Wars movie.
It was different. It was quite the departure from the soundtracks we were used to, for sure.
But with Han, with the Adventure of Han Solo, I wasn't so taken out of it that I was like, this is obviously not John Williams.
Well, and it
because
helps that they revisited a lot of the themes
Sure,
from the
sure.
original soundtrack.
But
so.
why would you have to? You're telling a story, and these story elements have characters that we're familiar with like Lando and with Han Solo and Chewbacca.
Yeah.
You're talking about people that we already know, so of course you're going to reach back
Yep.
and pull some of the John Williams element.
Yeah.
How are we doing on time?
I think we're pretty much done. I think that was pretty thorough.
So one more I want to have for a deserving mention.
Sure.
Okay, I was going to speak to the thing was your number 5, the fucking
Shadows of the Empire.
Shadows of the Empire. God damn it! I deleted it off of my thing. So we talked about it when we did the ranking of the individual songs.
Mm-hmm.
It was I had it in my iPod, and it was a listener to the podcast, John, it was something I got off of his iPod that I downloaded to my iPod, and I was trying so hard to figure out where the fuck did this music come from? Like, what album? I want to buy this on CD or vinyl if I can to fucking save it forever.
Yeah.
It's called Star Wars Symphony for a Saga.
Okay.
And there are basically it's all available online. You can download the MP3s or MP3s off of this dude's website. It's like it's a tripod.com website.
Tripod.com.
Yeah, it's old school, like just a fucking HTML based fucking website. But the guy, he cut sections of the music so that it would play like not like the movie did, but just the way he liked to hear it, and it had elements that went into that.
Okay.
Star Wars Symphony for a Saga. If you haven't heard of it, Google it and listen to it, especially the Twin Sons. Yeah, bring it up real quick.
Star Wars Symphony first.
For a Saga.
For a Saga. Symphony for a Saga, right there.
Yeah, music
All
of
right.
Star Wars.tripod.com.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can.
We're
see
not
how-
going to play it, but
No. So go to the Symphony, and it shows you to break on the left hand side there. Jason's going to the site, and he's got all the different ones that are broke out. But the one for A New Hope, click on that. That
A
one.
New Hope suite
Down,
right there.
That one. And scroll
Now,
down.
what do I
wanna
click?
See the track name. Okay, now what do I click? So, Luke on the Homestead is the title of the track, and that's the one where the element that we have with Rey reaching in and having the lightsaber fly to her hand.
Mm-hmm.
When I heard that for the first time in a movie theater, I thought it was like, fuck, this is directly from A New Hope soundtrack, but it's not. It's an element of of the Force theme,
Right.
but it's kind of extrapolated from something else. And he seamed it all together to make a very, very good, well put together track.
All right. Well, I got to
So-
look at that. So,
I give this guy all the credit in the world because he took something and he didn't ruin it. He didn't because you could very easily go wrong with this.
Oh,
right?
sure,
They're like,
yeah.
oh, I'm going to piece this together the way I like to hear it. Phenomenal job.
nice.
An absolutely phenomenal job. On this one, I haven't listened to the others, so
Yeah.
I can only speak to the one for A New Hope.
Okay.
But the way these elements are put together are so fucking good. The Battle of Yavin one, orgasmic.
Yeah.
Very, very fucking good.
Nice.
And the only reason I didn't include this into this list is because this is not a soundtrack.
Right.
This is like basically a mixtape
Yeah.
of all the different soundtracks. So
Worth mentioning.
yeah, if you're out there, Star Wars Symphony for a Saga. The fact is, I should really try and reach out to this guy because if he has it on like a fucking CD, I'd buy it in a minute.
Yeah.
Because it's excellent.
Or fucking get him
It's
on the
fucking
show.
Excellent. And this goes to like you think about John and like John's had this shit on his iPad or on his iPod back in the day when iPods were still a thing.
Right.
He already had this.
Yeah.
Like John, when it comes to shit like this, with the soundtracks and classical music, like the Medal of Honor soundtrack and everything else, the reason I have that shit on my fucking iPod is because it came from John's.
Okay.
So
Which we got to get him back on the show, by the way.
absolutely. He introduced me to this, and I will say that it is a go-to
Okay.
for just wanting to hear. It's bringing elements and it puts them together seamlessly and in a way that you've never heard it before, and it's excellent. It's excellent. So I highly recommend it.
Well, I'm going to bookmark it right now, so
Yeah.
we'll do that.
Again, Star Wars Symphony for a Saga. It's on musicofstarwars.tripod.com. It's excellent. It's excellent. And if you appreciate all this music that we've talked about for the past hour and a half,
Yeah.
you'll really appreciate what he did.
And you will do it.
Do it.
All right, so that's this episode.
Do it.
Honestly, I had so much fun doing the research
fuck
for
yeah,
this, making up my list. It was very enjoyable. Honestly, did you get to the point where you were listening to some of these and all you could think about was like the interludes in the first Battlefront? Like the load screens and everything else?
I when I was reaching out and listening to Shadow of the Empire and Force Unleashed, I found some stuff on YouTube to listen to that. Listening to Clone Wars. Rebels really didn't have anything that was like out there.
Right.
It made me think of the reason Battlefront is so fucking good is because this music is going in the background.
Yep.
Nothing original,
No, it's
But
all
it's-
it's like directly ripped right
Yeah.
from these soundtracks.
which I haven't played Battlefront in a minute.
Deliberately.
Deliberately.
After last week, after listening to all of this music, I'm like, I gotta play Battlefront again.
Yeah.
Because I'm listening to some of these tracks, especially from Empire. A lot of these were derived from the Empire Strikes Back. It's the fucking loading screens as you're watching your fucking map load. You're hearing that John Williams music, and you're just like, ah. And I'm listening to these soundtracks in the car. I'm like, I gotta play Battlefront again. Like this is fucking ah.
It's what they're so missing the mark if they don't in this new Star Wars game. If there are so much elements of the fucking soundtrack embedded in it.
Right, and we could have a whole other big discussion about
I'm sure.
why Battlefront, the first Battlefront for the Xbox One, is so important in our minds because of that original trilogy feel. Yeah. Where even more than Battlefront 2, where Battlefront 2 focuses on a lot of the prequels, a lot of the sequels, Battlefront 1 is original trilogy only, and it
makes it so good. It's just so fucking good.
So we'll talk about that another time, but just so you know, it's on my radar to get back into that and play it a little more. So with that being said, for those of you watching on the YouTube, stay tuned because we will get to our football topics of the week.
Yes,
but
I have a lot to say.
Yes. For everybody else, the audio listeners, the YouTube listeners, thank you. Check out Podbelly. Check out Used and Abused Podcast. Thank you, Scott. You are the man.
Check us out on Patreon.
Yes, Patreon. Support us, please.
Go on Instagram and fucking bug us for not posting enough shit.
All right. I try. But
so do I. But not trying. I'm not trying hard enough.
Yeah. And until next time, Dave and everybody else, may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you. Okay, now what do I click? Don't click too soon.
I know. I don't.
Don't click too soon, Jason.
God damn it! I know. File. Is there a skunk out there?
No.
Oh.
But if there is, he's gonna get blinded by the light.
I love that song.
Spread out like a douche.
I always thought that's what he said too. Was wrapped up like a douche in the murder of the night. Oh yeah, we're still live. We'll be back in 10-ish minutes for the football stuff. Until then, peace, bitches.